Hi, I'm Nick, and this is the TbT channel. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody who's contacted me after a video I did last week before, about me coming to the UK. I'm going up to Whitby. People are always asking me, can I do a review on this? Can I take apart that? Can I bugger about with the other? The answer is only if I have the gun in front of me. Lots of you have contacted me and said, I've got this, that, or the other to sell, or that you can borrow. So thank you to all those people, especially to everybody who offered me a Tempest on loan. Lots of you have offered me a Tempest on loan. I think I've replied to you all, but if I've missed you, I'm sorry, but thank you for the offer. I'm going to be buying a Turkish one from a shop who has some marked as spares or repair, just to see what's going on with that, see if I can bring it back to life. Anyway, so that's that. So lots of you contacted me. One guy contacted me and said, I've got he's got a lot, actually. He's got a lot of air rifles. Mike, his name is. He said, I've got a couple here you can borrow straight away, do a video on. I said, oh great, well, I'll be over in May. And he said, oh no, I'm popping up to Weihrauched Merlin in Angoulême on Saturday. I'll drop in on the way past. He said, I recognise where you live from your drone footage. So he only lives down the road. Who'd have thunk it? Down here in southwest France, I've got people watching who only live down the road. So he popped round. I say popped round. Oh my God, this guy has got a collection of motorbikes. I am envious. He's got a collection of radio controlled aeroplanes, of which I am envious. And he's got a collection of guns, of which I am envious. We will see some of them, lots of them, I hope, over the coming months as I get to borrow and play with them all. So he dropped off a couple to me, and we're going to look at one of them today. Now, this brings me to, in a roundabout way, what I'm asked quite often for is my opinion on, and could I do a strip down on, an HW57. I don't have an HW57. I've never owned an HW57. When you see people talk about HW57s on the internet, the first thing you'll see is lots of people saying, oh, they have problems with the pop-up breech. They're not very good. They're not very accurate. The second thing you'll see is everybody who owns one after that saying, actually, no, that's not true. They're brilliant. And I think this pop-up breech problem came because there was a problem maybe when they first started making, maybe there was a problem then. And one shop kind of jumped on it and said, oh, we're not going to sell these because they're crap. And that's it. And people think that they're crap. I'm not saying they don't have issues, but I have a lot of customers who own them, and they certainly love them. It's if you don't know, it's an underlever rifle, basically the same internally, the same chassis as an HW99 / HW50S, which means it is perfect for the UK power limit, perfect for sub 12 foot-pounds. It is giving the perfect amount of air swept volume for that power. So to make it shoot nicer, all you really need to do is isolate, stop any metal to metal contact with some guides, and that is it. It doesn't need short stroking or anything in the UK. And when you bring the lever down, a little automatic breech pops up that you load the pellet into. Now, the benefit of this is safety. Okay, so you can cock it, return the arm, and then you can just put the pellet in. So you're not putting your fingers effectively into a trap, which is what you're doing with a lot of sliding breech models. It's always the thing. I've got them. I have sliding breech models, but it always makes me a bit cautious. You should always keep hold of the cocking lever while you're loading it anyway, but still putting your fingers in there is always a bit dicey. So the 57 gets around that, and that's great. There's zero chance of lopping off your thumb. So from that point of view, it's really good. And it's also much, much lighter than an HW77 and much cheaper. I will get one of these. I'm sure I'm going to get a 57 at some point, and then I will show you inside of it and show you how it works. And I'll do some testing myself. Like I say, internet reports say, some say it's not very good. My customers loved them. And I've only heard of 1 or 2 actual issues with them, so I don't know if it was an isolated thing. But anyway, I'm digressing. That was Weihrauch's automatic pop-up breech. What a clever design. But they weren't the first to do it. Now, I think the first to do it was the Lincoln Jeffries and the BSA light patterns and stuff like that back in the mists of time. But there was one rifle that was made in the 60s that did it, and it was a BSA, and I have one here. It is a BSA Merlin. Now, use this arm to drag that over and pop it onto there. Now, when Mike brought this out, he brought it in a bag and he said, look at this. And he pulled it out and I looked at it and said, a Merlin? He's like, yeah, a bit shocked that I knew what it was. Now, my experience with a Merlin, this is my experience with most guns, goes back to when I was young. Probably 1984, 1985, I'd have been 13, 14 years old. And, you know, you used to hang around with your friends and stuff. So there's oil on here. I'm just going to give it a little clean. I'll explain the oil in a minute. Give it a little clean there. Hang around with your mates and we'd shoot air rifles and stuff like that. Now, we lived in Sissinghurst. The next village over was Frittenden. And Frittenden was, oh Christ, that must have been 4 miles away. So it was ages away, but occasionally we'd all get on our BMXs and cycle to Frittenden and go and play with mates at their houses. And there was a guy called Dave Hall. Now, this is hazy, and this is a memory that only came back to me on seeing this gun. So I've probably got half of it wrong. But Dave Hall, I think he lived on a farm. I think his dad had a farm. If he didn't, there was certainly a field near his house because that's where we shot his dad's BSA Merlin. Now, he said, I've got an air rifle. And we went out to play with his air rifle. This is the thing. This is the amazing thing that stuck with me about this gun. Watch what happens when I pull this lever here and pull it down. You see that? The loading gate magically rises there. You pop a pellet in, you push it down, it's ready to fire. No little fingers getting into places where they're going to get trapped and hurt. Love it. But I do remember, in my little man brain, I do remember that pop-up part there was actually the rear sight, whereas this one's rear sight is in front of it. Now, I expect you lot know more than me about most things, and that's just all there is to it. Someone tell me, did I imagine that? Did I imagine that the rear sight was the on the pop-up bit there, or were there different versions of this? I don't know. It just says BSA Merlin, not a Mark II or Mark III or anything, so this must be the original. But you will know better than I. So his dad brought out this rifle, and when you loaded it, when you brought the lever down, the gate with the rear sight on it magically popped up, and you could put your pellet in there, and then you fired it, and you could watch the pellet kind of fall down on the floor somewhere not very far in front of you. It was a bit cack, but what a great design. So he brought it out. I said, BSA Merlin, and I grabbed it, and it's like, my God, it's tiny. And it really is. Maybe I did know at the time, but in my memory, it's much bigger than this. Much bigger than this. I thought it was a full-size rifle, but this is very much a junior rifle. It could be a pistol. It's that light and it is that small. I can't find anything about these in my old magazines because my old magazines aren't old enough. This is going to be from, I'm guessing, the 60s or 70s. Okay, and that's it. This one, it's okay. Mike actually got it because he'd been after one for ages, and then a friend gave him one. You need friends like that, don't you? He gave him this one. It's a bit tatty. It's painted. He wants to do it up. And I don't blame him, but it's a piece of nostalgia, and that's what old guns are to most of us. It's just a piece of nostalgia, but it works. He said I can take it apart. So I ran it over the chrono, and it was doing 200 and something feet a second in 177. So not particularly strong. So I thought, well, I'll just take it apart. Now, it's not my gun. So I started to take it apart, and realised after removing the 3 screws on the stock, I couldn't even figure out how I was going to get it out of the stock, because you've got this part here. That's not a problem with the Pro Sport. You just kind of take it up and backwards and that comes out. Then you've got a plate there that's got the device that pops up the breech there. And I had a look and there's springs and stuff everywhere. So I thought, you know what? Discretion being the better part of valor, and cowardice being the better part of discretion, I'll just leave it alone. Maybe next time Mike comes over, we'll take it apart together. Then it's down to him. It's his gun. If he wants to do that, fine. I'm sure we'd get it back together. But it was like, oh, do you know what? Not sure. Oh, and the spring fell out the back of the trigger spring. And it was just a straight spring with a little bit on the end. And I didn't know how it had come out. And I didn't know how it tensioned the spring. And that took me ages just to figure out how to get that back in again. So I didn't want to deal with the rest of it. So what I did last night was I put it upright like that, and I got a syringe, well, pipette. I just turned it into Arkwright, a pipette. And I got some motor oil, 1030, I believe, and put it down the barrel with it upright and left it overnight, because that has lubricated the leather piston inside there. Leather piston seal, I should say. And you can hear it working. That oil is doing it the world of good. And this morning I ran it over the chrono, and after a couple of splurgy, do you remember Bugsy Malone, the film with the kids and their splurge guns that fired like kind of shaving foam cream, whatever it was? It was kind of like that at the beginning, first few shots, then it cleared up, and now it's doing over 400 feet a second. So just putting a bit of oil down there because I know this is a leather piston seal, that's done it wonders. Totally different kettle of worms to a synthetic one. You don't put oil inside of a synthetic one, it will diesel. This doesn't, because it doesn't generate the same kind of pressures that a modern gun does. So, BSA Merlin, a little junior rifle from a bygone era. Now, I didn't have one of these, but what I did have, in fact, I don't know where we were getting them from, I can't remember, but there was a period of our adolescence, let's say. It was about the same time as, no, a bit earlier than discovering girls and beer, but probably after discovering fags. Somewhere around that kind of 14, 15 age, we discovered that we could get money for pheasants from the butchers. So legally, we would legally acquire them, of course. But one thing we did have, and I had a Webley Jaguar. Do you remember the Webley Jaguar? Very similar in size and performance to one of these. It was a small thing, but it was a break barrel. Mine was sawn off to about there, and this part of the stock was sawn off to there. And I had a kind of barber jacket, and that fitted lovely on the inside pocket of my barber jacket. So we used to saw the barrel off, because we had, a few of us had these. We loved them, our little sawn offs. Saw the barrel off about halfway, and then very carefully we would use a practically fresh hacksaw blade, but we would do it as square as we could by eye, and then we'd get a drill with a brass round-headed screw in it, and that's how we'd countersink the, or not countersink, the crown. We'd clean the crown by doing that, recrown the barrel by doing that, and then drill a small hole in the top and just put a little bit of welding rod in there for a front sight. So it was cut off to there, no, because you just kind of held it like that and pointed it, and out to about 10 meters. It was bloody awesome. It really was. And the butchers in Cranbrook used to buy pheasants off of us, and we used to get quite a few. So that was nice, and that's another ramble, isn't it? So I think there was the Webley Jaguar, and was there a Ranger that was about the same size? So anyway, that's it with this one. I just wanted to show you it. I'm going to be shooting it. I'm not going to video me shooting it. You don't want to see that. It's not particularly interesting. I just think it's a lovely little gun. It's just delightful to hold, and it's actually, now that it's full of oil, quite smooth. I mean, it's no TX200, don't get me wrong, but it's not bad. It's a bit rattly. If I do get Mike round here and we take it apart, then I will probably put a plastic guide in it just to quieten it down a little bit more, It's not going to add any power. It doesn't need power. It doesn't want power. That's not what this gun is about. This is about enjoyment of shooting for the pure pleasure of it. And that's going to take me to my next video, which is at the opposite end of the scale from this, it being an Olympic grade target gun. But that's for next time. Please like, subscribe, hit notifications. Thank you all for watching. Please leave comments. Please let me know if you have a Theoben Femin, so particularly. And I'll see you all again next time. Goodbye.